Where'd the idea for this one start, Michael?
What year did it start?
No, where did the idea?
Well, the idea.
begin?
I was 19,
Yeah.
and I dropped out of college, and I got a Eurail pass and a youth hostel card, and spent a couple months going around Europe, and I was in Sweden, and I broke my toe, and somebody sent me to a clinic or something, I don't know what it was, and not much you can do with a broken toe, but they did what they could, and I went to pay the bill, and there was no bill, and I didn't understand it, and seriously, I'd never heard of such a thing, and so they explained, and all through Europe, I just kept running into little things like that, thinking, that's such a good idea. Why don't we do that? And that's where it started.
And then you're probably always confronted with these arguments, well, of course it wouldn't work here because the population's too big. Well, of course it wouldn't work because of this, because of that, because of the other thing. I mean, you constantly have that stuff thrown at you. Why a simple solution wouldn't work, right?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And I grew tired of listening to that. I mean, lots of things have to happen, obviously. An anti-apartheid movement starts. People start divesting from South Africa. There's a multi-decade campaign. And then one day it tips. And one day one man who was the president of South Africa gets to wake up and say, fuck this shit. Let him out. And ultimately, sometimes it's something like that, or sometimes it's just a bunch of people just show up and start chiseling on the wall. And obviously on the other side of the wall, there was a collapse going on. But I think of, like I said in the movie, 41 states put it in their constitution or in their laws that it was illegal to marry people of the same gender. And that was just not last year, 2 years ago. Massachusetts, I think, was the first, 10 years ago, and they were the only ones to make it actually legal for a very long time. And then it tips. And it tips because people do things. And those who are so-called in charge get out of the way. They know when to get out of the way, usually. Sometimes they don't, and then a larger rebellion takes place. But I don't know. I am, as I said in the film, an optimist. I'm not a cynic. I don't think it's all fucked. I felt like that. I feel like that sometimes. It doesn't mean it's the truth. Yesterday's shooting in Oregon. What do we do about that?
Obama's response was great, though.
It's awesome. And, he inches his way toward that place where he needs to go. And I hope he goes there. He's got a year left.
Questions? Can you wait for the microphone? Hold on one sec.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out on a rainy day to watch this. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Michael, I just want to thank you for the film. I thought it was wonderful. I'm an NYU student. I wanted to ask you about college and what you think is driving the...
Don't drop out. Stay in school.
I was considering it after watching this, considering going to Europe now. But I wanted to ask what you think is driving the increasing cost of higher education and what you think can be done to tame that cost.
Well, I think I don't think it's so much, I don't think the question is what's driving the cost up. We know a lot of the answers to that. And certainly once we turned it into a for-profit system, even though these are a lot of our state colleges are nonprofit, once the banks got involved, it became a profit-making operation. And once you introduce them, then things spiral to the place where, of course, we need this money and we have to get these loans and all this. I think if we started with the attitude that higher education should be free, like it is in other advanced, industrialized, civilized countries. Not just those, I put a whole bunch of other. You can go to the university in Haiti for free also. You know, anybody should be charging, but I guess, you know, it's a value, it's a moral value. And throughout much of the world, they place a huge value on that you shouldn't be sent into that debtor's prison at age 22. And he wasn't, and people of my generation weren't. And I'm just wondering why you aren't more mad at us for allowing a system to take place that we didn't go through. That we weren't paying off student loans at 40, 45 years old, which is what you're going to be doing. You know, so, yeah, I don't know what the applause was for there. I think that they were applauding that you're going to be paying till you're 40, but no, they weren't doing that. Yeah, I mean, I just think anytime you introduce the profit motive into just about anything, especially in places where it shouldn't be, anything that has to do with the public good, it's just wrong. It's oil and water. It doesn't mix right, and the oil will win out.
Hi, Michael. I work for The Guardian, and my British colleagues who saw the film in Toronto were curious to know why you didn't choose to invade the UK.
Because the UK has in recent years started to look too much like us. And so it was on the board at one point, but the UK charges tuition now, not as much as we do, but they've changed their value system to believing in a system of inequality, especially when it comes to income. And so I wanted to go to places where we could learn from, and I don't think we have much to learn from the UK right now. I'm sorry to say that. Don't take that. Or you're an American. Don't tell them that. Just. But I'll tell you what we were going to do. If we had gone to the UK, at least in England, I don't know if this is true for the whole UK, because again, they have started to act like us, think like us, and look like us, and so our fast food is everywhere. Their kids are now looking like our kids, and that put a fright into the public a few years back. So they've made it part of the curriculum now. That I don't know which grade it is, but I think it's like 7th or 8th grade, that 7th, 8th graders have to take cooking class. It's a mandatory class to learn how to cook healthy food, which I think, being British, like that's kind of admirable and a challenge. So, you know, so I thought if we'd gone there, we would have done that and would have had some fun with it. And the Scots, they let 16-year-olds vote in the referendum election, and they're considering now lowering the voting age, as half a dozen other countries have lowered the voting age to 16. They found that 18 to 30-year-olds, those who have lowered it already in the past decade, vote at a higher rate at 18 and 20 if they start doing it while they're in high school, when they're in their civics class and they're talking about the election, and then the registrar comes in. You know, the whole thing is kind of set up to get them voting while they're still in school, and then they do it more when they get out of school. It's a really good idea.
Hi, Michael. I wanted to ask about the powerful gender message at the end of the film, the gender and the women, and I wondered whether that came out organically out of the film and the people we were talking about, or whether that was initially part of something that you wanted sort of the film to end.
No, it grew organically. Most of the things do in the film. I mean, I thought about it. We were going to show some things about how women have more power and more women are elected in other democracies. But as I said in the film, as we went to each country, we were shown or talked to or saw things that, because women actually have this kind of power, and it's not just Iceland where 40% of the corporate boards have to be women. That's the same in Norway. I think actually Norway started it Germany now it's 30%. 30% of a corporate board has to be female. It just kind of became, through my own sort of dime store political scientist looking at things that just seem to kind of, well, just have you noticed in these countries where women have real power, not the fake power that women have here, where 20% of our Congress are women. The majority gender, 52% of the population has 20% of the Senate and 20% of the House. And the sad thing is for historians 100 years from now, is that we've left behind film and videotape showing ourselves being really happy that 20 women got elected to the U.S. Senate. And it's like they're the majority gender, and the minority gender has 80 seats. In past times, there was a word for that. But we don't use that word when it comes to things like that, the sort of gender apartheid that we have in this country. So yeah, it just kind of came organically, like a lot of things do. I don't know if you're not with me while I make these films, so you don't see how we do this, but don't give me too much credit for thinking this out a whole lot in advance. We don't think, geez, wouldn't it be cool if I took a can of Coke in and sat it down on the lunch table to see what the kids do? It was like, I want a fucking Coke, and there's no vending machines in the school. So I asked my assistant, she had to run into town and get me a Coke. And it's just sitting there, and so much of like when that happens, it happens. The thing at the Berlin Wall at the end was absolutely not planned to be in the film. It was not going to be the ending, because we hadn't heard from everybody along the way as they told us more than even what I put in terms of, hey, we got this idea from the U.S., or there's this think tank in the U.S. where we sent our people, and they, these progressive educators came up with this stuff, and we just kept hearing this over and over and over again. And the Berlin Wall was only because Rod, who was the executive producer of the film, and who also had got a Eurail card and a youth hostel card, and we were friends back then too. And I was, we've been friends since I was 17. And so all through these years, we've always talked about doing something around this idea of, because if you have traveled in other countries, haven't you had that moment where you go, why don't we do that? It's such a simple idea, little ideas, little teeny tiny ideas. Why don't we do that? And so basically he was there, and we were in Berlin, and mostly just for nostalgia, we thought, wouldn't it be cool to have, just for like our scrapbook, let's shoot some video of us at the wall 26 years later. From that night we were there accidentally in Berlin, again just a random thing, not because I needed a Coke, but just because we were in Berlin, and we just randomly were there and heard this was going on, and we went down there, and we thought, well, we're here shooting in Berlin this other German stuff, why don't we just go down there and take some pictures, and we'll just walk along and reminisce, and we'll give this to the grandkids someday. That was really all that was never intended to be in the film. So we shoot a lot of stuff, and we just kind of see what happens. I find the best stuff is the stuff I don't plan out, and the stuff that my field producers do in terms of the research. I have them tell me only the basics. I don't want to know. I do not want to know any of the research. So for instance, when the Italian couple says to me that they get their honeymoon paid for, 15 days, and you see my reaction like whoop, that's real. I'm hearing that for the first time, even though my producers may have known that. They know, we've done this for so many years now. I mean,
you preserve your own spontaneity.
Yeah. Because can't your sniffer tell if I'm acting? I mean, I hope you can. So I don't want to act. I really want that to be real. We don't do a second take. We don't do, if the sound guy says there was a plane going, we didn't get that. We didn't get it then. You can't ask the people they're not actors. If you ask them to do it a second time, they try to act, and then you know it, and it sucks. And you've seen too many documentaries like that. And so this is all, it has to kind of happen in the moment, and it has to happen with me in the moment too. That's why sometimes if I say something and it's funny, and sometimes it's not so funny, but it's just what I said, So I'm not trying to go for, hey writers, give me a funnier line, So.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Maria. I'm a journalist from Finland. And I wanted to ask, based on your experience shooting this film, if you could change maybe 3 things about the US education system, what would you change?
Food.
Well, yeah, the food. A lot of kids just don't eat anymore. Especially in high school, they cut out or they do something else or they just don't eat. But yeah, I would say I would change the things I said in the film. I would feed them healthier food. I would make their happiness my primary goal. And I would let them be kids. And are there any parents in here who have kids, especially in junior high or high school, middle school, that are doing homework at 10, 11, midnight? We didn't. Did you do that? In high school, did you do homework at midnight?
Well, I was supposed to.
No, you didn't.
No, sometimes
We
I
weren't
did.
doing homework
I
at
don't know,
midnight.
sometimes, yeah.
No, it's just.
Car on the way to school.
It's just. I think we got sucked into something, and then somebody figured out how to make some money off it. You know, some of the people that the companies that write the standardized tests actually run charter schools like Pearson. So it's like there's a profit machine behind this, and I think the other thing too, it's not so strong in the film, but I'll say this here, is that we treat our teachers like crap, and there's no respect for them. They love teachers over there. They did a poll of teenagers and young adults of a profession. Who would you want to marry the most? You know, doctor, lawyer, brain surgeon, somebody at NASA. And of course, doctor was number 1 with both the boys and the girls. But number 2 was teacher. That felt like the coolest thing if I was married to a teacher. A teacher's at a party. It's like everybody kind of congregates around the teacher. The teacher is really, but they have you have to graduate in the top third of your class or have something, or write a really good mission statement to get hired as a teacher. You have to, but then they pay teachers, as you know, not like they could all, here, depending on how many kids you have, you could actually qualify for food stamps in some school districts. So anyway, yeah, I guess those would be the things. And don't get rid of your civics classes. If you're a democracy, you should not get rid of civics. Thanks for watching this and coming from wherever you came from too. Can I just say something to the Finns and any other foreigners in the audience? Your country has a lot of problems. Germans, French, Italians. I mean, every country has a lot of problems. And I didn't go there to make a film about your country. You need Finnish documentary filmmakers, to do that, or other people. And you don't need Americans telling you what to do. And as I said in the film, I went to pick the flowers and not the weeds. So I acknowledge that, if you're watching this, you're going, yeah, but does he know about, it's like, no, I don't actually. I don't live there. And there are a lot of things you're dealing with. But that's not my film. My film is about us, not you. And I just decided to tell a story about America without shooting a single frame of the movie in the United States.
Hi, Michael. Great film. Speaking of us, how can we invade ourselves? That is, what are 1 or 2 things that we're actually doing right in this country? Things that we're doing well at that are also good.
Things that the U.S. is doing well at.
Doing well.
That are also good. Good deeds that are done well.
We still do rock and roll and music really well, hip hop. They're still not very good in France with that. Turn the radio on. It's like they should just kind of give up because they're never going to quite do that. That's good. I like the choice of cereal here. It's massive choices.
Do better than that.
I just feel like Jeremy Renner at the end of Hurt Locker when he's in that aisle, right? And he seriously, he goes like, you know what I'm talking about, the scene, where he's, where he kind of knows that he can't stay here. Um, um, no, I mean, I love living. I mean, I actually I love these countries I went to, but I wouldn't want to live there. I like living here. I like this. I like New York. I like Michigan. I like. I could give you a whole list of things. In terms of what you think we're doing right in terms of public policy, we elected Barack Obama over John McCain. That was a good idea, I think. I think that saved us a little bit. I don't think most of these countries are going to elect someone of African descent as the head of their country. There's a lot of great things about us.
You've had this really successful career of melding political hot button issues creatively with entertainment, skillfully. In the political sort of circus arena we have going on right now, what do you, going back through your career, how do you feel about like 140 characters being more interesting to half of the country than like a great film like this?
Well, I mean, I like Twitter. I actually like the challenge of the 140 characters. As a writer, I like rewriting. I like the 13th rewrite because I like trying to figure out how to say this with fewer words, or not so expository or whatever. So I think editing is good, and Twitter forces you to really edit. So. I don't know. Is your question do I feel bad that I live in a world now that everything is so quick and short or?
I think I mean like specifically, if I want to be specific, like the Republican, like the GOP.
Oh, the Republicans who are running?
Yes.
Oh, well, don't worry about them. They're not going to win. Don't worry about the Republicans. No, don't worry about worry about the other side, because if I can place myself on that side of the other side of the fence. We don't show up. We're the slacker side of politics. And so our side didn't show up in the congressional elections in the last election. That's why they have the House and the Senate, that and a rigged card game called gerrymandering. But so that's how the Republicans can win. It's the only way they can win. We did the statistic, we almost put this in the film. 79% of the United States are either women, people of color, or people between the ages of 18 and 30, young people. That's the block you have to win to get elected. That's 79% of the country. Women, people of color, young people. Donald Trump has none of those blocks. He can't win the majority of any of those blocks. So the candidate who will appeal to the issues that women care about, that young people care about, and acknowledge that Black lives matter and that there are people of color in this country that have made this country what it is, and for the first time 3.5 weeks ago in our history, a school year opened where the majority of kindergartners were not white. First time ever, 3 weeks ago. The majority of kindergartners were people of color. That's our America. When they debated the GOP, the American people, they are thinking of the white guy or the angry white guy. And that's just not America anymore. That America's over, and it is more of the melting pot, more of the diverse nature that it is. And women will vote sometimes 10 percentage points higher than men will vote in certain elections. And so to ignore that and to not address that, or to say that you have the right to regulate a woman's uterus, but not guns. It's like, I think the only safe place for guns would be in a woman's uterus. Then they would be regulated by our Republican Congress. I hope that it came out right. But and there's the 140 character takeaway from this press conference. So
It's on its way around the world as we speak, right?
yes.
Yeah, one more. Yeah, right in the center. Yeah. To whom is the film dedicated?
It's personal. But to an individual, I had a great deal with how me began the journey and the process of making this film. So it's, you know, up in Toronto, I mean, I read or heard some, you know, things that people wrote, what they wrote about the film, and the difference of this film from the other films. It's not so angry. Mike's happy. It's, I'm like more angry than ever. but I think that there's a more, maybe I came up with maybe a more subversive way to deal with that anger about the condition of this country. And
An oblique angle too. You know,
yeah,
you're looking at it.
yeah, and I think that the audience, because I'm making this for, you know, I mean, I'm really nervous today because this is going to be, well, you were the first American audience for this. No Americans have seen this film unless they went to Toronto. I mean, that's it. We didn't do test screenings. We kept this very quiet. So, and I wasn't in here for the screening, so I don't know how people responded. But
They responded well.
Oh, well, thank you. But thank. That sounded like
Went
such
well. Yeah, it still is.
But no, but you know, I used to do this in the old days. In the crew van, we'd have an old rickety theater seat, and we would take the seat around with us in the crew van because we considered the audience part of the crew, and that the film isn't really finished until the audience leaves and does something, anything. Even if it's just think, I'm happy with that. Happy with thinking. But it's really not complete until, and so it's, you know, the Seattle Seahawks, the 12th, what do they call it, the 12th team member on the field is the stadium because it's so damn loud in there, you know, and it really helps them, like, you know, okay, I know I'm probably the only person this week to discuss sports at a press conference. Okay, I'm sorry. But that's how we view the audience when we make these films, and so it's very important that that something happened. And a day like yesterday, a lot of us, I mean, the crew I put together there's a few people from every one of my films. So from Roger Me, there's people from Roger Me on this film, Bowling for Columbine, Fahrenheit, my TV show, TV Nation, Awful Truth. So yesterday we're like, you know, what was the point of making that film? You know, it's still, here we are 13 years later, you know. But we know that's the rabbit hole not to go down because, again, as I said at the end of the film, we know that things can change and will change. And I said after Newtown that, and I didn't say this glibly, and it's upsetting to think about, but if they actually showed the crime scene photos of 20 first graders with their heads blown off, how long would the NRA stay in power? And of course, I don't want them to do that, and it's an awful thing for the parents and the family to hear something like that. But a month ago, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old child washes ashore there on the beach, a refugee, that photo. And it just instantly, Merkel in Germany, these countries, Austria, let them in, come in, 400,000, come to Germany. It moved the German people, it moved the Austrian people, it moved people, a photograph of that child, which was so upsetting. And sometimes these images and what we do does matter and can affect change. And so we hope, whether it was with Bowling for Columbine that's so sadly still relevant, or this film, that it doesn't take a lot. Just a few people have got to do something. It's not a lot of people. No change has ever occurred with the masses doing it. It's always, you know, a few, 25% supported the American Revolution of the colonists, right? It's a minority, always a minority. Jesus had 12 guys that fished with him, right? Marx had Engels, right? Just a couple of old farts warming their hand around the fire, talking shit to each other.
Yeah.
Look,
And that all went well. Yeah.
Yeah, the practitioners of it a century later didn't do so well with some of the concepts, but the basic,
Yeah. No, I mean, in general, the point. Yeah.
the basic ideas of it,
Yeah. Right.
that, you know, of how to share the pie
Yes.
and treat each other,
Yeah.
are still the solution
Yep.
to us treating each other well and living on this planet well and sharing it well, you know, with each other. But that's a lot of politics. I know we're done, right, here. But I just wanted to say that you know, we're filmmakers, and I talk politically a lot. But if I really wanted to just make political speeches, I wouldn't run for office or give sermons. I'd go back to the seminary and, you know, well, I don't know. I would. Well, I don't. Now we got a pope. I don't know. It's like
He's a good guy.
he's a good guy. So, but we're filmmakers, and so we love the art of cinema, and we love what it can do to move people through fiction or nonfiction. And I love this film festival. I coming here as a young person, and just what you do here, what the Film Society does year round. The fact that you have these 2 theaters now, it's very, very cool. And so the time I spend in New York, I spend time here, and I'm grateful for it, and grateful to the people who came here today. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael.